All right, let's talk metaethics. This is your essential guide to cracking one of the trickiest topics for your A levels. We're about to go beyond just what's right and wrong and ask what we even mean by those words. So let's dive in. So let's start with the question that really kicks this whole thing off. It seems so simple, doesn't it? But when we actually stop and think about it, what are we really doing when we label something as good or bad? Think about it this way. You say, this ice cream is good. Are you stating a fact about the ice cream in the same way you'd say this ice cream is cold? Or are you really just saying something about yourself, that you like it? This little example is the perfect way into the central puzzle of meta-ethics. Are moral truths out there in the world waiting to be discovered, or are they just things we invent? Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll get our heads around what metaethics actually is. Then, we'll meet the 3 core theories you need to know and the key philosophers behind them. After that, we'll get into the great debate. This is your key evaluation stuff. And we'll finish up with a toolkit to help you nail that exam. Right. Let's kick off with Section 1. Metaethics is all about taking a step back. We're not getting into the weeds of whether a specific action is right or wrong. Instead, we're zooming out and asking, what's going on with our moral language itself? It's the big picture view. So you can kind of think of ethics in 3 layers. At the bottom, you've got applied ethics, which tackles real-world dilemmas. One level up, you have normative ethics, which gives us frameworks like utilitarianism to guide our choices. But metaethics, well, it's floating above all of that, asking much weirder questions, like, what does the word right even mean? Does goodness actually exist? And this leads us to 2 absolutely crucial distinctions you have to know. First, are moral statements cognitive? That is, do they state facts about the world that can be true or false? Or are they non-cognitive, just expressions of feeling, like saying ouch? And second, are we moral realists who believe that moral truths are real, existing things? Or are we anti-realists who think morality is just a human invention? Okay, Section 2. Let's meet the 3 main theories that try to answer these big questions. You need to know these inside and out. First up, we've got naturalism. Now have a look at this cartoon. For a naturalist, the wrongness of this fight isn't some mystical property. It's something you can observe in the natural world. The pain it causes, the harm it does. It's a real, observable feature of the event. So for a naturalist, good can be defined in terms of natural things. A utilitarian, for example, might say, good is simply whatever causes the most happiness. Since we can observe and measure happiness, we can observe and measure good. That makes naturalism a cognitive and realist theory. Moral statements are factual claims about the world. Next up, intuitionism. The intuitionist agrees with the naturalist that moral truths are real. But look at the cartoon again. They argue that you can't see the wrongness. It's not a natural thing you can point to. It's something you just know through a special faculty, your moral intuition. Think about the color yellow. How would you define it to someone who has never seen it? You can't, right? You just know it when you see it. Intuitionists say goodness is exactly like that. It's a simple, non-natural property that you can't break down any further. You just grasp it. So it's still cognitive and realist, but it deals with a special kind of non-natural fact. And finally, emotivism, which completely changes the game. The emotivist looks at this scene and says, wrongness? That's not a fact out there. That's just a feeling in here. It's all about your personal, emotional reaction. For an emotivist, saying murder is wrong isn't stating a fact. It's basically the same as shouting boo to murder. It's just expressing your disapproval. That's why it's sometimes called the boo/hurrah theory. It means moral statements aren't true or false at all. So this one is non-cognitive and anti-realist. Right, Section 3. It's time to put some names to these ideas. Dropping the right philosophers in your essays is how you show the examiner you really know your stuff. You can see how the conversation develops over time. David Hume laid a lot of the groundwork way back in the 18th century. Then, in the early 20th, G.E. Moore comes in and gives us intuitionism. He's followed a few decades later by A.J. Ayer, who champions emotivism. And then in the 70s, J.L. Mackie arrives with some really powerful criticisms of the whole idea of moral facts. This is the key quote from G.E. Moore, our main man for intuitionism. He argued that any attempt to define good in terms of a natural property, like pleasure or happiness, was a huge mistake. He called it the naturalistic fallacy. For Moore, good is just good. It's a simple, basic idea that you can't define any further. You can only recognize it.
And then here's A.J. Ayer, the big voice for emotivism. He came armed with a killer argument called the verification principle. The principle says that for a statement to be factually meaningful, you have to be able to verify it through your senses. Now, can you see, touch, or measure wrongness? No. So for Ayer, when you say murder is wrong, the word wrong adds no factual information. It just adds your emotional disapproval.
Okay, section 4. Let's get to the heart of it all. This is where you really flex your AO2 muscles. So, after all that, can we have a meaningful debate about ethics? Or is it all just a big shouting match where we're airing our feelings? Let's put the arguments head to head. On one side, for moral facts, we've got the point that pretty much every culture in history has agreed that murder is wrong. That seems to point to some kind of objective truth, doesn't it? And we talk about moral progress, which only makes sense if there's a real better we're moving towards. But on the other side, J.L. Mackie points out that moral codes actually vary wildly, which suggests they're invented. And he has his famous argument from queerness, and by that he just means strangeness. If moral facts did exist, they'd be these really weird entities, completely unlike any other kind of fact we know. And this cartoon with Flib and Flob just sums up Mackie's point perfectly. They can observe everything that's happening with their alien senses. The purse being taken, the person running away. They can analyze all the physical facts, but they can't find the wrongness. You can't put it under a microscope. So where is it? All right, final section. We've covered the theories, the thinkers, and the debates. Now for the crucial part. How do you translate all of this into top marks in an exam? This is where we get practical. Take a look at the difference here. Izzy's answer, it's not bad, it's got the basic idea, but Jack's answer is on a completely different level. Why? Because it's packed with precise technical language used correctly. He's not just name-dropping, he's explaining concepts clearly and linking them to examples. That is what an examiner is looking for. So here it is, your final checklist. 1. Be super clear on cognitive versus non-cognitive. 2. Know the 3 core theories backwards. 3. Link the right scholar to the right idea. Moore with intuitionism, Ayer with emotivism. 4. For your evaluation, use arguments like moral agreement versus queerness. And 5. Make sure you can clearly explain the naturalistic fallacy and the verification principle. If you can do all that, you're in a brilliant position. So let's end with that one big question to leave you thinking. After looking at all the arguments, where do you land? Are moral truths something real that we discover about the universe, like the laws of physics? Or are they just powerful stories that we invent for ourselves? That, right there, is the mystery of metaethics.